It's a love story.
Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet have been an iconic acting duo for the last 2 decades. As their film Titanic marks 25 years, Access Hollywood is taking a look back at their 1997 interviews for the movie, including the one thing the then 22-year-old Kate hoped wouldn't happen when Leo was cast.
My God, did I want Leo to play that part. And thank God that he did. It was great.
How did that work out? Because, I mean, you're from such different backgrounds. Did you gel straight away?
Yes, we did. Yep. I mean, I can't deny it. We really did. We hit it off straight away, and it really wasn't a problem. I'd thought that it would possibly be a problem because I was aware that he might have a sort of incorrect perception of what I might be like being English and all of that kind of thing. And of course, you know, the English actors are terribly, you know, can be like that and ever so sort of Shakespearean, etc. And I mean, I know and you know that that's not really the case at all, but you know, one can understand an outsider's impression, and I just was as relaxed as I possibly could be with Leo when I first met him, and very honest and very open, and it was fine. It really was never a problem.
He's such a staggeringly good-looking boy, so the girls tell me, and even I can see it. Is it kind of possible to get past that straight away?
Yeah. It was, in my case, it was. I mean, I did think to myself beforehand, it's going to be hard because, you know, what if I really fancy him? And I so thought that I was going to, because he is absolutely gorgeous. He is, there's no two ways about it. But it was never a part of it. But, you know, I'd have to say that the closeness and the strength of the friendship that we had is something that a lot of my female friends envy like hell. But to me, he's just, you know, he's just silly old Leo is what he is to me.
We definitely initially said, oh wow, we respect each other's work, and we wanted to do, you know, were both big reasons why we wanted to do this picture, was to work with each other too. And you know, as soon as it became even deeper when we started doing the movie, because we definitely needed, you know, a shoulder to sort of lean on, and we were there for each other constantly. I mean, when you shoot a movie for up to 7 months, you need, and through all the stuff that we had to do in this movie, you need somebody to, you know, vent with. So we did a lot of all the complaining we needed to do, we did in the trailer, so we didn't need to bring it on set. But she was such a great partner and such a terrific person. Yeah. Really is. I mean, she's top-notch. She's going to be one of the greats. She already is.
The pair also reflected on working with legendary director James Cameron, as the then 23-year-old Leo also opened up about his initial hesitation to take on the role.
I don't really like sort of these gigantic, huge films for some reason. They seem to be a lot more about the special effects and less about actually a story with content, you know. But I didn't want to discriminate against this movie just because it was huge, because it was a terrific script, you know. It was a great character, and an overall it had a lot of important things in a movie. So it was an interesting sort of thing. I, you know, took a chance and tried something different here, because traditionally I've sort of done smaller films.
I met Jim before I'd read The Treatment and thought to myself, you know, this is great. The determination that he had and the work that he'd already put into it at that point. I mean, he'd been already thinking about this film for a year and a half when I met him, and that was in December '95. And then I read The Treatment and thought, wow, floods of tears, got to do this film. And just basically took the bull by the horns and phoned him and said, I have to do this, I really do. And, you know, give us a chance, mate. Is really what it was about. And flew to America, flew to LA and did a screen test, and the rest is history.
Well, I'd seen his work before, and it was I mean, I think this was something completely different than he's ever done before, for sure. I mean, he's done action pictures before, and I'd always noticed that in his films in the past, he always had, you know, the character development was always there in all of his movies. He paid a lot of attention to that, and I think more so in this movie than ever, you know, what the audience is connected to and attached to is these two people, you know what I mean? The sinking of the ship can be as dynamic as it wants to be, but in the end, that's what the audience is connected with and emotionally attached to and pretty much interested in. I mean, not to say that, not to take anything away from the ship sinking, because it's amazing, but that's what I was attracted to about the film, and as far as Jim's concerned, I don't think anyone could have done this movie besides him. He, you know, he's completely passionate about what he does all the time and a perfectionist. And everyone around us doing the movie had to know that, you know, their focus needed to be on what was going on constantly. I mean, it's something you have to remind people of constantly doing a movie like this, because, you know, a lot of things can go wrong.
The actors even explained what it was like working on the now world-renowned classic in the nostalgia-inducing interview.
I did focus on a lot of the facts and the figures and the people on board the ship and what the accommodation on board was like, etc., etc. And then it did get to a point when I thought, oh, enough now. I've done enough of that, and actually didn't really need to know all of that stuff because Rose wouldn't have done. So then my focus was much more on the Philadelphian society, and I mean, I was always going to do that anyway, but I much more looked at that and building up Rose for me and making her my own, and, you know, got to get that dialect underway as well. So there was a lot of hard work for me in preparation.
But preparation in character, were you prepared for the sort of reality, the physical reality of
No, I wasn't. I mean, physically, I did a lot of exercise beforehand, and I may swim anyway at home. I knew I was going to have to be very, very strong to get through it, not because of the physicality, but because it was such a long shoot. So I needed to build up resistance to things like, you know, getting ill, which I just couldn't afford to let that happen. I've lost my thread.
Just in terms of physical, well, you were talking about you could swim, which is obviously a useful attribute for a film like this, and to be a survivor. But doing those scenes in the water.
Yes. No. What happened was I remember saying to Jim, you know, I don't think, Jim, I ever really saw Leo and I doing all this stuff. I think I saw kind of little cartoon figures or something, and, you know, I didn't really think it through. All I would do was read it off the page, and sometimes it could be 1/8 of a page, very small description, and think, oh, that'll take a couple of hours to do. 2 days later, we have the scene in the can. I don't know what I imagined really, but you know, nothing could have prepared me for what it really was, because some of it was very, very tough, but you know, incredibly exhilarating at the same time. And
was Leo is the right word, a crutch? I mean, did the pair of you kind of like shoulder?
Oh, he complained about the cold water all the time, and I was just, you know, oh, come on, don't be such a wuss, come on, let's just get on with this and do this, and it'll be absolutely fine, and once we start doing it, we won't feel the cold. And it's true, once the adrenaline was going, we didn't notice the temperature of the water, and in fact, there were only, you know, there were only a few occasions when it was bitterly cold, but for the most part, they could heat the water a bit, but when we had so much water, it was impossible to heat it.
There was an actual ship there that was on hydraulics that went up in the air. It was like amazing. You went out in this completely fabricated studio in Mexico, and there was a gigantic Titanic sitting there. It was like you know, a huge sight to behold. A lot of it was done in real life, surprisingly. You know, some of it was computerized. As far as like the end sequence, which is probably the most climactic, when the ship completely goes up and down in the water, a lot of that was done for real. I mean, I remember the day we were there. I mean, it was completely surreal. We had, you know, 20 guys on bungee cords below us, falling on top of each other and bouncing off girders, and then above us on a hydraulic poop deck while we were chained on. And then looking up, you see, you know, 20 cranes around you with lights, and then Jim Cameron swooping down in an elevator crane to a close-up, passing you to a green screen. It's like, whew.
Do you realize, I mean, do you look at this film and realize this is going to be part of history? I've made a history-making movie here.
Absolutely. I mean, the Titanic has a lot of sort of, it's a classic story. It's a real classic story in history. I mean, it has a lot to do with man's arrogance, you know, which was really interesting to me. It has a lot to do with man's, you know, blind faith that we're putting in technology. I mean, it was the Industrial Revolution at that time. Man was like kicking into full gear, making like the biggest ship in the world, and making a proclamation to the world that they could, you know, build a ship that was unsinkable, that couldn't sink. And they sent it out to sea, and tragically it struck an iceberg and had tons of casualties because they were, you know, ignorant to what was out there.